Are you coming back to school with me? We could have done it all so easily.
Hi, my name is Craig Thompson-Wood. I'm your host on Teaching with Board Games, here today to do a video on games which are better than Monopoly. So in May of this month, 2022, I had done a whole month of looking at Monopoly as a game which can be used in different educational ways. And I thought it would be a good idea to talk about, Monopoly as a game. I mean, it's obviously so popular, but there's just so many other games out there now. I mean, there's literally over 120,000 board games listed on Board Game Geek at this time. And there's more coming out all the time with great mechanics, great ideas, but a lot of people still seem rooted in this idea of like board game equals Monopoly, and is taking some real pushing to shift people's ideas out of that. So if people say that they like Monopoly, hey, I mean, that's great. I mean, you like what you like, but maybe they like Monopoly because they don't know of other games. And so maybe if they say Monopoly is a game, their favorite game, or they really enjoy Monopoly, then this video is going to give you some ideas of ways to, what different games you might look at to vary it up a bit and try something different. So what I thought I'd start off doing is looking at why do people like Monopoly? I mean, Monopoly is a very popular game for a reason. So in looking at it, the things that I came up with, my thoughts on why Monopoly would be popular, would come down to a few things. One is familiarity. It's a very familiar game. People know it, and like when you think board game, you think Monopoly, so that's their go-to because it's what they know. Two, because it's a simple enough game that you can play with kids. It's an introductory game, and so people don't have to know a lot of rules and things. It's quite easy to play. Three, some people might like the wheeling and dealing aspect, making those deals. Okay, I've got these two things, I'll trade you for this, and the bartering and making the deals to accomplish what your ends, your needs for the game. So some people enjoy that aspect. The fourth thing is acquisition and money management, just acquiring things, gaining more and getting more and more money, and seeing it almost just living, like a millionaire for that time being, that you're living like a rich person, you can afford all these things and making all this money, or possibly losing it all through the game, is something that maybe people enjoy as well. The fifth thing is real estate. Maybe you enjoy the idea of buying this different real estate and building your houses, building your hotels, and just building this empire of real estate. That could be something you could enjoy. And the last thing is dice. Some people just like to roll dice. So in looking at those six different aspects of what people might enjoy about Monopoly, let me take a moment then to break down what people might look to then. If you talk to them about Monopoly and you're trying to shift them from Monopoly, ask them, what is it that you like about it? And see if you can use this guide then to help shift them into something else. Now, one thing I'm going to say quickly too is that I don't own all of these games that I'm going to be talking about today. So instead of showing copies of the games that I own, and some of them like Power Grid here is you see it's kind of like elastic band holding it together because it's or a strap, because it's been well loved over the years. So rather than show all this, maybe the worn copies I have or whatever, I'm just going to put a picture up here to when the games come up to show what games I'm talking about, what the covers look like. So if they're saying that familiarity is the thing that really sort of drives them, that they say, I know Monopoly, I love Monopoly, Monopoly is it for me, well, okay, maybe a lateral move then, not Monopoly the board game, but how Monopoly the card game, Monopoly Deal. That might be something they'd be willing to do. So they're still playing Monopoly, but the nice thing about Monopoly Deal is you do away with the board, you do away with a lot of the other things, and different mechanics make it a little more fun, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinions. But what also is nice about it is that it plays very quickly. The game only takes like 15 to 20 minutes, so it's a very quick game as well. So that might be something that they're willing to do. So again, if they're looking for something that's familiar to them, Monopoly Deal is a good choice. So introductory games would be the next topic. If people are looking for a game which is an introductory game, something which is simple on the rules, light on the rules, that you can introduce to people who are not very familiar with modern board games, like all these different complex game mechanics and things that are, you don't want to overwhelm them with lots of rules for a game or strategies and things. You want a nice simple game, then great. Monopoly Deal, again, works well for this one. Monopoly Deals is a very simple game, simple rules, so that could be one that could work well with this. Ticket to Ride. Ticket to Ride is now considered, like, by many to be like a modern classic, where there is, very simple rules, very accessible game of set collection to build your routes and things with the trains across whichever continent or country that you're looking at. And just it's a wonderful simple game that is a lot hailed as a gateway game. It's sort of people start off at that and then branch out into other games as they realize, hey, board games are different than what I'm used to. This is really, really fun. I like this one. So Ticket to Ride is definitely up there. And of course, the granddaddy of all the gateway games is Catan. Catan's, is held by many to be responsible for the whole new revolution in board games. And Catan, uses dice, but you can mitigate your luck as opposed to being completely at the mercy of the dice. In Monopoly, you roll and think, there's ways to mitigate your luck in Catan, but there's still the roll of the dice, so there's still that familiar element of dice rolling and things. But again, very simple game, and one that has launched a lot of people into realizing that board game mechanics don't need to be like some of those ones that we remember from yesteryear when we're kicking it old school. All right, looking at wheeling and dealing. Wheeling and dealing, we're going to look again to Catan. Catan has a lot of that wheeling and dealing aspect going on, where people can make trades and things and say, okay, well, I need sheep. I'll trade you 2 wood for a sheep or something, and people will make different deals that they need to accomplish their ends. So there is that aspect to it. I mean, it's not the whole game, but it is certainly part of it. But if you want a game that's the whole game of wheeling and dealing, if you love wheeling and dealing, if that is your thing, then let me tell you, Chinatown is an amazing game for that. People who like to do wheeling and dealing, making deals based on anything you want. I'll trade you this property for that property. I'll trade you this location for that location. I'll trade you just anything. Anything goes with that game. It's so crazy. But it's a wonderful, fun game, which is completely negotiation. There is no dice. There is cards and a board and things, but I mean the whole mechanic is based around negotiation with your other players in the game. For acquisition and money management, instead of just money management, it's also resource management when we look at a game like Power Grid. Now, Power Grid was a game, when I looked at it, and you can see the cover by the cover here, didn't excite me at all. Power Grid was the game that got me into modern board games. I remember I was at a meetup some years ago, and I was invited. I was walking around watching, different people set up games, and this one table of people I didn't know. They invited me to come play with them, and I thought, sure. I don't want to be rude. I don't know anybody here. This is my chance to meet some people and try a new game. But I looked at this game. I thought, ew, this game looks terrible. Looks boring. Looks awful. Based only on the cover alone. Like, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Well, nor should you judge a board game by its cover, because Power Grid was amazing. It was such a great game. Just you're building different power plants, running on different types of fuel sources: coal, oil, burning garbage, uranium, you name it, different types of sources, and just trying to build your empire of power stations across different countries. Different maps provide different countries. In the base game, you have America and Germany. And then you can get different ones like North, South Korea, China, Italy, all kinds of different places. So it's but wonderful, wonderful game, and I highly recommend that one. Another one, and this one goes back to like 1960s. This game came out, which is Acquire. Acquire, again, and one of those games that first glance might not seem so pretty. I mean, the newer versions of the game do have some plastic components and buildings and things which make it look nicer. And just managing your money and acquiring different companies and stocks and things to gain larger shares in companies and ultimately win the game. So if you like this whole idea of like stocks and accounting and then money, watching your money grow, then this is a great game for that. And another game, which is relatively unknown, I got this one in a Kickstarter a few years ago, but everybody I've showed this game to loves this game. It's called Crisis. And Crisis is, in the game Crisis, all the players play billionaires who are part of this country that is suffering economic collapse. And in order to prevent the country from economic collapse, they're working, not together, but you are working to, buy up new business, buy up failing businesses, acquire workers, and sell goods, buy goods, do different things that you need to do in order to stimulate the economy and boost things back up again to prevent complete collapse of the economy. It is competitive, so like I say, you're not working together, but if you hurt each other enough, I've seen it happen where the whole economy goes bankrupt, and then at that point you see, there's ways to determine who is the overall winner. But a really interesting game, because you have this whole thing about, like I say, just watching your different things that you're building up, your businesses and things, and how they're going to help chain each other. Maybe you're getting a power plant to fuel other sources, a farm which provides you with resources for something else, and then eventually you start to get enough resources together that it just creates this whole big engine of parts that are all working together to help move you forward and gain more and more money and prestige for you in the game, which is ultimately your points. So in looking at real estate then, so if you're looking at games that provides that sort of like acquiring real estate, that you like things like that, then For Sale is a wonderful game, very inexpensive game too. You can easily buy it for under $20, I believe. Still, I can't remember how much I bought it for, but I mean it's just a small deck of cards and some coins, and you are auctioning for different properties at the beginning of the game. At the end of the game, then you're then selling those properties back to see how much money you can make. Player with the most money at the end of the game is the winner. But beautiful, fun, quick little game, very easy too. I remember playing, it plays up to 6 players, and I remember playing with I think like 4 adults and 2 children once at a party one time, and we all loved it. And one of the kids kept winning every time too, so go figure, right? Machikoro is another game which has that idea of real estate acquisition, where you are buying different properties and buying them by dice rolls. So you're using 2 6-sided dice, so that's going to, again, if people like the dice in there, that's again a familiar aspect to it. And so you're acquiring your properties, which again, as you get different properties, are going to help you acquire other properties and help you give you different things, and it all starts to build and creates that sort of game engine that we talk about, that things start to play off each other and boost each other through the game. So that's Machikoro. And finally, if you love dice, well, one game which is not really related to Monopoly in any way, except with dice, is Formula D. Formula D is a great game. It's a race car game, so it's not really related to Monopoly, and you're not going to be purchasing anything, but just you're using different dice, and different dice have different numbers on them. So even one dice has 4 sides, it only goes up 1s and 2s. The 6-sided dice only has 1s, 2s, and 3s, and so on. So, and then when you get to the 8-sided dice, I think it goes between 4 to 8. So you are, it just represents the different gears that you're going. So at certain gears, your minimum speed versus your maximum speed, and you're going to have to gauge how fast you're going through your turns and things, that you don't do too much damage to your car. It's a wonderful, fun game, one I've played many times and always enjoy, but a lot of that dice aspect in there as well. Dice Forge is another great one that I would recommend if you like dice, because in Dice Forge, you're actually able to change the faces on your dice as you play the game. Dice Town is another great one, which is kind of using dice to create like poker suits and things. And so there's a lot of great games out there using dice, so I would just suggest maybe doing some more look into that and see what you can find, because dice is definitely a popular mechanic in games. And so there you have it, a lot of different ideas of games you might be looking at to replace Monopoly in your home, or to make suggestions to somebody you know who really loves Monopoly, but you feel maybe you want to try and edge them into another direction. Well, there's a lot of different suggestions for you. Maybe do some time to find out what it is that they like about Monopoly, and use that information then to shift them into another direction and explore some different games, because there's so many great games that are out there that you don't want to be stuck playing Monopoly forever. I mean, like, I used to love Monopoly too. At one point in my life, I said Monopoly was my favorite game, but now I've moved beyond that, and I'm glad I have, because I've discovered so many great games, and I'm just feel much better for it. I mean, there's just so many fun things out there to play. And if you have any ideas for games which you feel are similar enough to Monopoly that can be recommended to somebody, especially if they fit within those categories that I had laid out, or if you can think of other categories that maybe I didn't mention that you thought, I think maybe that's why somebody likes Monopoly, is this aspect of the game that they enjoy. Again, let me know any of those things in the comment section down below. Love to hear from the viewers, get your ideas, your thoughts, your feedback on these kinds of things so that I can help to make better content for you. And that's going to wrap it up for today's episode. Until next time, I am Craig Thompson Wood, your host on Teaching with Board Games, saying thanks for coming to the classroom.
Are you coming back to school with